Those of you that were brave enough to show up tonight, make sure you have a pen and paper handy because I want you to take notes off of this lecture. It's very, very important. I wish someone would have had this conversation with me that I'm just about to have with you when I was where you are at and before I went through this transitionary stage of writing my first book. It took me years to recover, so we want to avoid that travesty. But so you know what you're getting into early on, and you don't overreact to any luxury situations. Okay, I'm assuming everyone has their pen and paper handy. Give you a few seconds just to make sure you have it handy, because I want you to take this down. I want you to study what I'm going to talk to you about tonight, like you'd study for a final test in a collegiate class. I made some notes, so you'll see me glancing off to my left-hand side about some things I want to talk to you about. The first thing I want you to write down is this. The retreat, this retreat equates to growth through expansion, release, and it's a change agent on steroids. Write that down. Because it's way more than just about writing words and completing a book, as you will see. Now, there's two versions of reactions that you will have to the change represented by the retreat that you're just about to take. The first version of reaction is resistance-based movement leading to clearing. Write that down. Resistance-based movement through clearing. Resistance-based movement through clearing. What really happens when you write a book using this method is you commune directly with the Almighty through the essence of your book. As you do that, and as you sit in the presence of your book at this retreat, the white light energy of the divine pours through you and clears out any wounds, any unresolved issues, any indecent attitudes, any depression, any anger that is standing in the way of the space that it, meaning the white light energy, wants to inhabit. So you're going to have some stuff coming out. And that stuff that you're going to have coming out is kind of like an old roommate that you never liked, who finally moves out after 10 years and you miss him because you just got so used to him. Try to hold on to him before he moved out because you're just so used to the routine. Even though you didn't like living with a guy, it's still change. Now, symptoms of this resistance-based movement through clearing. Symptoms that you're going to have. Write all these down because each one of you is going to go through all of these symptoms at one time or another. These symptoms surface on the emotional realm. You will have resistance. The resistance will especially surface leading up to the retreat, just before the retreat. Just before the retreat, you will have a last-minute questioning, a last-minute panic, somewhere between 3 and 5 days before the retreat. Like, what the hell am I doing? That's normal. If you don't feel that momentary resistance, I'll be worried about you, but I know you will find this resistance, and this resistance will find you. When you have that resistance, that initial pre-retreat resistance, stop whatever you're doing. Go into that resistance. Just allow yourself to feel it. Don't run from it. Take time to say goodbye to it because it's trying to leave you. It'll be painless if you just do that. If you kind of avoid it, push it away, or overreact to it, you'll make it something that it's not. It's trying to leave you. And in trying to leave you, you may overreact. So just go into it. Breathe into it. Allow yourself to feel whatever you're feeling. Thank it. Thank that resistance for whatever significant role it played in your life. Thank it. and say goodbye to it and just let it leave. You'll go through that transition easily if you do that. The second type of resistance that you'll feel, the second timetable and resistance that you'll feel, will happen during the first full day of the retreat. Remember, we'll be meeting on Thursday night. We'll start on Thursday about 4:30. And we'll do about 3 hours worth of writing that night and have dinner together and kind of get to know each other. So you won't really have too much resistance there. But on Friday morning, you'll feel resistance. And the resistance will surface in the form of rejection, rejecting yourself, rejecting the book, rejecting the process. So normally the comments we hear Friday morning are, yeah, I'm writing really well, but it's all over the place, or it's crap. This is a very important time for me to stress this very important point to you. When your book starts writing itself, it's very playful. It experiments a lot. So you may find yourself writing in the first person, the third person. You may find yourself writing a novel, nonfiction. You'll be back and forth. For the first 10% of itself, while it's writing itself, for the first 10% of the time while it's writing itself, it's experimenting. Don't judge it. Let it experiment. Let it find out what works best for it and what works best for you. This resistance will clear usually about lunchtime, no later than lunchtime, on the first full day of the retreat. You'll give into the flow with the resistance gone, book will flow out, lickety split, and you'll enjoy the process. Second form of resistance that you will feel is anger. Anger. You know, anger is designed to protect an unresolved, unhealed wound. At some time in all of our lives, somebody told us that we were inadequate expressionistically. We talked too much, we said too little, we spoke too often, we didn't, what we had to say wasn't worthy. That's an unresolved wound for all of us. So you can expect to feel anger during that first full day of the retreat. Again, I want to stress very strongly, when you feel these emotions, these are emotions that are no longer trying to stop you. They're trying to leave you. They're being pushed out of your soul, being pushed out of your consciousness, being pushed out of your mind, being pushed out of your heart by the white light of the energy of the book as it takes over its space inside you. In each and every case, whether you're feeling resistance or anger, go into it. Allow it to overtake you. Through overtaking you, you'll no longer be holding on to it, and you'll be allowing it to leave. So you'll feel anger as a form of resistance. Nervousness. You should be feeling nervous now. Because there's a certain part of you that's saying, oh my God, if she writes or he writes this book, that's going to change our lives. People are going to, it creates ultimate vulnerability for us. So you feel nervous. It's interesting when people are nervous, especially writers are nervous, they talk a lot. They talk a lot. And so when you all get together, there's 45 of us, I guess, 45 of us or so for this retreat. We'll be all getting together in the same large room, and you won't know hardly anyone, but you'll talk immensely. Everybody will start talking because they're so nervous before the retreat. That nervousness passes as soon as you begin writing your book. Doubt. Doubt's another form of resistance that you will feel. You're going to doubt whether, hey Miles, how you doing, buddy? You're going to doubt whether what you're writing is valid. You're going to doubt whether you should actually be there. I would say that every person at a retreat who visits the retreat for the first time wants to run out of the room at some point. Doubt gets so strongly like, I just want to get the hell out of here. No one ever does, though, because they don't want to be the only person that left the retreat. The power of the group holds them in place. That doubt will be momentarily, but it'll be really strong because so you can expect it. That doubt surfaces at 2 times. It surfaces just before you surrender to the book, Friday afternoon, the first full day of the retreat. It surfaces strongly there, the strongest there. And it surfaces just before you show up at the retreat. Expect these things. If you expect these emotional reactions, you won't overreact to them because you won't be surprised by them and you'll be able to go with the flow. This is all a natural part of the process. Fluctuating mood swings. Yes, you will have them. You'll be exhilarated by the fact that you're writing so well one moment, and the next moment you'll be frightened because you're writing so well. So you'll have varying mood swings, It takes, and if you watch your writing speed, you'll see when we time your writing speed every 15 minutes, you can see the ebb and flow of the exhilaration and the resistance. When you have exhilaration, you write 700 words every 15 minutes. That'll drop down to 300 words. That's when you're having the resistance. So it'll go like this, like this, like this. And I watch your writing speeds consistently throughout, especially the first full day of the retreat, because I'm looking to see when the ebb and flow of your writing speed will level off to the point where you're giving into the flow. But you can expect it. So as you're watching your own writing speeds at these retreats, you'll see them really spike, drop, spike and drop, spike and drop, spike and drop. But as they spike and drop, they'll get closer to spiking and not dropping so much, spiking and not dropping so much. And finally, there will be just a gentle wave of writing speed. It'll be very consistent for you. Please take note of that. Hot and cold. We keep the writing room at 72 degrees. I strongly suggest you dress in layers though, because depending upon what emotional form you're feeling at that moment, you may feel really hot or may feel really cold. We don't adjust the temperature of the room. It stays at 72 the whole time, but so you'll go hot and cold streaks. But the temperature of the room never changes. Again, this is an emotional reaction as a result of resisting the change that is happening naturally for you. Hunger. Please take strong note that we strongly suggest that you bring a lot of good, healthy snacks to the retreat. In fact, every 50 minutes when you take your writing speed, we will suggest that you take down some bite of nutrition and a swallow of water. Internally, you're going to be burning a tremendous amount of calories, It's very important to keep your blood sugar normal so that you don't suffer from low blood sugar or high blood sugar, and it throws your writing speed off. So make sure that you understand you will be hungry. At the meal break, you'll be voracious and eat all you want because you're going to be burning thousands of calories a day during your writing. You will fluctuate as well from between exhilaration and happiness and fatigue. So at the end of the first writing day and the second writing day too, you're going to feel really good. Like, wow, that was great. It was hard, but it was feeling really, really good. I was feeling really, really good. But you can expect that exhilaration to last maybe 45 minutes to an hour and 50 minutes before you crash. So if you're making dinner plans or you want to go out with friends, make sure you do it right after we're done with the writing session, the last writing session of the day. Because if you go back to the room, you won't be going out at all. And most of you will fall asleep very early on Friday and Saturday, especially Friday. Now, a lot of you will not sleep well on Thursday night. The reason for that, and we've got a remedy for that too, and I want you to take down some notes about what I suggest in this regard. Most of you won't sleep well Thursday night because you've got that writer, that author within flying out of you, and it doesn't want to stop because it doesn't know when because you're going to open back up again. So make a specific note in your notes that after Thursday night session, you have a silent talk between yourself and your author within, just a momentary talk, and just say, hey, thanks for tonight. We're doing great. But listen, I need to get some sleep. So we're going to open back up. I'm going to open back up and let you take to writing again tomorrow morning at 7:30. But between now and then, I need you to sleep. If you don't have that little talk, this little talk I'm talking about, that author within will keep you up all night. I would say those people who don't have this talk, I'd say 65% of them don't sleep at all Thursday night. So have that little talk. Get used to making dates with your author within. Get used to talking to it because it's a living, breathing entity. Just because it's on the other side of life doesn't mean it's not alive. Get used to talking to it. Get used to expressing the fact that you have human needs and wants and schedules to attend to, and that you're willing to open up to it whenever it's convenient for you to do so, to make dates with it. So again, Thursday night, before you go to bed, stop, relax, and say to the author within, hey, I need to go to sleep now. I'll catch you on the other side of life. I'm sleeping. Then we'll formally get together tomorrow morning at 7:30 to write again. If you don't say that, you may not sleep Thursday night. Now, other things you can expect. Oh, let's see what I got here. You can expect on the positive end, move away from resistance. Now let's talk about on the other side of this resistance. You can expect your book will write itself. That's usually the hardest thing for a new author to accept, that they have to share the stage with their books. See, most of the time we believe that we create books. And I think we do create them. But we created them on the other side of life before we were born. So they're already waiting on our own personal bookshelves to be delivered. So we did create them at one time, while in a very divine state on the other side of life. Our job right now, though, and your job at this retreat, is to release your book. Release the book that's already written. So you will have the impression by doing so that the book is literally writing itself. It's not writing itself. It's releasing itself through you, through the passageway that you've given it, through your author within state. So the book will feel like it is literally writing itself. That's normal. You may react to that with some resistance, like, hey, I'm the author here. I'll tell this pen where it's going to go. Or I'll lay my fingers on the keys that I want them to be laid on. Don't do that. Just relax. Realize that you've already written the book. It's just being transferred to you now. It was probably written decades before. So the book will feel like it's writing itself. Again, the book will experiment. Please understand that the book will experiment for probably the first 10% of your time writing it. It will experiment. After it figures out again what is best for you, what you like best, what is best for it, it'll click into place and rapidly start racing down the road. And you'll know that. You'll know that because you'll feel a lot less disemboweled. You'll feel a lot less confused. You'll feel a lot less frustrated. The book will appear to be whatever it wants to be. Keep in mind, though, that you wrote this book decades before, and probably before you were born. So the book isn't really making a stamp for itself or brand for itself as it's writing itself. It's expressing what you already wrote on the other side of life for the specific time to be released at the retreat. So it's going to be a reflection of the message that you, while on the divine side of life, realize that you're supposed to embody and release at this time. So it'll be different than what your logical mind thinks it would be appropriate. You remember, your logical mind is always going to play it safe. It's always going to be extremely conservative. Your logical mind wants you to write about something that you know about, consciously know about, something you've learned, something you've perfected in this life. The book will be a representation of something you perfected and want to express while you're on the spiritual side of life. So it'll be different. But you can rest assured that the book that comes out is the book that was meant to be born now. You can want a girl. You and your wife or you and your husband are going to have a baby. You could want a girl really bad, but if you get a boy, you get a boy because you chose a boy before you got here. And it's the same thing with the book. The book will end all on its own. No one ever believes me when I say that. I'm going to keep saying it until you hear it. The book will end all on its own. The book will end all on its own. And you won't know more than a few minutes in advance before the book ends. Sometimes you don't know more than a few seconds in advance. You'll just be writing it stops. You realize you're done. You realize from an emotional perspective that you're done. The writing and release relationship between you and the book has concluded, and you realize it on an emotional level. On an emotional level. Now, I've had many authors tell me as I go around the room and I measure their abilities, I measure their plans, and I measure their progress based upon their word count and what I see in their word count. So I can normally tell when an author's book is going to come to a conclusion. So it's not unusual that I'll come up to an author and whisper in his or her ear, your book's going to end in the next 10 or 20 minutes. And it's not unusual for the author to react to me in a negative way, look at me and say, you're crazy. I got 3 more days before this book's going to end. Well, there's certain patterns I look for to tell me what the progress of the result of a writer or the progress of a writer is. There's certain things I look at and I search for to find out when you're getting near the conclusion of the book. And there's certain telltale signs that I can see. Plus, intuitively, I can feel those things. So every time that the authors turned back to me and said, you're crazy, I got 3 days more to write this book, I just politely walked away, smiled, and said, okay, whatever. But that author's book has always ended within the time frame that I knew that it would, because I can feel the conclusion. I can read the statistics of their progress on their 15-minute timesheets. So the book will end all on its own. You may wonder, well, why wouldn't the book give me 2 hours or 3 hours or 20 minutes notice before it's going to end? Because you'd screw it up. We've all had the situation where we've been reading a book, sat down and read a book, couldn't put it down, couldn't wait to get to the end of the story. And then we got to page 458 or so of the book. You're highly disappointed by the way the author chose to conclude the story. So what happens in that circumstance is the author, for the first 457 pages of his or her book, was totally in the flow, writing as if he or she was reading a book. But they knew at the time, around page 458, that the book was going to conclude, and they consciously tried to create an ending, and they screwed it up. Your book doesn't want you to know in advance before it's going to end, because if it does, you'll screw it up by going over trying to create a great ending, and you'll screw up. So actually, your writing speed picks up at the end of the book, but you will not know very far in advance before your book's going to end, and it will end on its own. You know, when I was sitting down this afternoon and trying to put together some specific notes to go over with you folks tonight, I kept getting visions back of 35, 34 years ago when I was going through the same process. Now, you probably know my story. I was a publicist of the Pittsburgh Pirates. I had a great job, but not a great job for me because I wanted to be an author. And I came home one night from a baseball game. It was late. It was around midnight. And I started crying incessantly. This is back in 1982 or 83. And I didn't know I was crying. And when I finally stopped crying after about a half an hour, I was in a very open-hearted spiritual state. And I said to Spirit, what was that all about? Because the crying came out of nowhere. And what I heard was, you're crying for yourself because you sold your dream out for a job. And to be honest with you, I was a little bit insulted by that. I said, well, I've got a degree in writing. That didn't help. I've read hundreds of books on writing, and none of them seems to have helped. I've interviewed best-selling authors and asked them how they got to where they were, and they didn't seem to help. In fact, the more information I gathered from these different sources, the harder writing seemed to become for me, and the further I seemed to get away from where I felt my heart really was. So I said to God, if you got a better way, because I don't think anybody down here really knows the way, show me the way, and I'll spend the rest of my life sharing what you shared with me with as many authors as I can find, so they don't have to suffer as badly as I'm suffering right now. So long story short, I'm very sure you heard all the story before. 2 nights later, I woke up in the middle of the night in a dream state, and in that dream state, I saw exactly what I needed to do. I put into play what I needed to do, sold my first book, 4 weeks later, tripled my salary and quit my job. That's how quick the transition happened for me. But consciously and emotionally, it took me 4.5, 5 years to catch up with what had actually transpired because it happened so quickly that emotionally I wasn't ready for the conversion that transpired in my life. But through the writing of my first book, my attitude toward life changed. My life changed. My attitude toward abuse I'd suffered changed. But I wasn't ready for all that. And the reason I'm talking to you now about what's going to happen at the retreat is so you don't have the recourse that I had after having written my book. See, because you're going to show up at the retreat, you're going to write your book. That's going to be a phenomenal event all on its own. But there are emotional reactions that will happen, emotional changes that will happen, there'll be healings that will happen, perspective changes, and opportunities presented to you in a course of a weekend. And if you know going into this weekend what you can expect, it's a lot easier to make up a lot more ground after the end of the retreat because you won't have to catch up so much emotionally like I did. So this is why I wanted to go over this tonight with you, what you can expect at the retreat. Other things you can expect. You can expect to make lifelong friends. I used to worry about when I watch these retreats, rosters fill for these retreats. Initially, when I started offering these retreats, I would be concerned because I knew a lot of people that were signing up. I thought, oh my God, it's like dating Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton in the same room. They just don't get along. But what I didn't realize at that time, and which I realize fully now, is God leads you to these retreats. And when you get into the retreat, all the preconceived notions, all the conditioned responses, all the personality aspects that you develop to survive in life, all fall away to make room for the author that you are. And you get to recognize each other's true selves through the writing of your books. So we don't do anything at the retreats to bring you together as a group. We don't even do any formal introductions. We got too many people that show up at these retreats to do a formal introduction. We'd have to increase the length of the retreat by another half day. So we don't do that. We give out name tags. We get together for lunch. You get together for breakfast. Some people to get together afterwards for a drink or two or to have dinner. We don't do anything. But we don't have to do anything for this to be a very effective way to commune with your own group of peeps. People seem to get together and grow together and recognize each other's truest selves from whatever experiences they've had on a soul level before. They become lifelong friends. As a result, writing doesn't become lonely anymore. You know, writers are probably the loneliest people in the world because they have no one to relate to. After the end of this weekend, you'll have dozens of people that will relate to you that you can call at any time. They can call you that you'll be lifelong friends with from this point forward. And that's very, very important. Knowing that you're understood is very, very important. Knowing that you're not weird or strange is very, very important. Knowing and the reverse of that, that you're unique and special and you have a very defined spiritual message and purpose and you're living it is very, very important. And quite frankly, we put way too much weight on the people we live with to expect them to understand why we love to write, why we need to write. They don't have that buzz, man. They don't understand. And it's unfair for them to expect, it's unfair for us to expect them to understand. So now you'll have people around you that understand. That makes all the world of difference. Okay. Ooh. Looking at my list. You can expect that you will begin your second, not only finish your first book, but you'll start your second book at this retreat. In fact, it sounds kind of callous, and it probably is kind of callous on my end. But when you're instructed that when you finish your book, that you're instructed to seek me out. I'll stop you in a hallway or in a room, wherever we are, in this side room, wherever we are, and I'll ask a series of a few questions. And these questions I will ask you to confirm that you've successfully concluded the writing of your book. If you've successfully completed the writing of your first book, my first suggestion to you, and please note this, is go back and start work on your second book. No one believes they have a second book in them. And so they'll look at me kind of strange, like, well, aren't we going to celebrate? Do we get a cake or something? No. You start work on your second book because the second book is the doorway to revision. Now, you may be concerned that you don't even have the first book in you, let alone a second book. If you get the first book out, the second one will come out naturally. Since 2008, I don't know how many retreats I've taught, but a lot. 8 years, a lot of retreats, probably 80 retreats. I don't remember anybody that's come through my retreat since 2008 who hasn't had a second book in them, which is one of the great blessings you'll get from this retreat too. You'll get to see that writing is more than a book for you. It's a passion, it's a career, it's a direction, it's a lifestyle. You'll also get to see, after you release that first book, you'll also get to look very intimately into your own literary birth canal. You'll see what books are stacked up there. Gives you great confidence to know what books are stacked up there and what order they're coming out in. So you'll be writing on a second book. And we'll explain more about that, or you can learn more about that through watching the revision CD. And you'll begin revision. You can expect to begin revision. I think the biggest things that you'll get from this retreat, what you can expect from this retreat, is you'll step through the doorway that leads from karma, past life lessons and healings, to dharma, life purpose. I know that's been my case. When I wrote my first book, I definitely stepped into my dharma. And it makes me feel so honored, and I am so honored to be able to provide this as an option for other authors. But as every book you write beyond that first book, you step deeper and deeper and deeper into the dharma. This retreat literally embodies the doorway between karma and dharma. As a result of that dharma, your voice, your true spiritual voice, will be released. You know, I can pick up books, I can pick up articles in newspapers, and I can read an article or a column, especially by a columnist, and not look at who the byline for the columnist. I can usually tell who the columnist is by the feel I get by his or her writing style. Same thing with books. Your voice will be released, which is one thing that you're going to resist initially. Your voice will be released Thursday night and Friday morning of the retreat. It's going to be a voice that you recognize, but are not all that familiar with. You'll recognize it as yours, but you don't remember, you probably won't remember the last time it came out in full embodiment, because it wasn't in full embodiment since the time you were a child. But you'll love it, but you'll be scared of it all at the same time. As the book writes itself, you'll have greater confidence in that voice, greater compassion for that voice, greater need for that voice, until you become positively addicted to that voice, but your voice will be released. This is a voice that goes beyond the words that you use, goes beyond the style that you write in. It's a voice that touches hearts through the identity of your heart being released first and foremost. It's your voice. Your message will be released. Another thing, you know, I heard a theory about 5 or 6 years ago. I don't remember where I heard it from, but I was reading a book and it was on writing. And this author said, every author, no matter how many books he or she writes, really only has one message. And no matter what different types of books he or she writes, the message is always prominently displayed, the deepest essence of that book. Well, at that time, I'd written 25 or 26 books, and I thought, I don't know if you look at my list of books, but they're all over the place. I write all different types of books. I write history books, instructional books, novels, all over the place, biographies. So I decided to test that theory by taking a day out of my life and really dipping into each one of my books and feeling what the message was, and to see if it was similar between all 25 or 26 books. And when I did that, I found that the message that I wrote was exactly the same. The deeper levels of the confines of each book, the message is always the same. No matter what type of book I write, the message will always be the same. My message is, You have a divine purpose. If you live it, you'll be happy. If you don't, you're not. That's my message. John Grisham's books basically all say the same thing too. He takes a really good guy, a really good woman, puts them in a really bad situation, and writes them out of it. You have a message too. And no matter what you write, whether it's a blog, whether it's a book, whether it's a screenplay, or any type of book, the message will come out. That's your message that'll be birthed through the writing of your first book, which will be easily identified by you in each book that you write from this point forward. No matter what form the book takes, the message will always still be there. This is your brick upon the wall of life that we're all building. And your message is very, very important to all of us. And it'll be delivered through your voice. And you may say, well, I can't really write a book that's different than anything out there because everything's the same. Yes, you're right. The same messages are repeated over and over and over again through the centuries of life. But what makes it different is your message is delivered through your voice. And there will be people who resonate with your voice that didn't resonate with the voices before you. So your message is very, very important. Very important. And what else you can expect in the retreat is you can expect to release this message in a tangible, permanent form. We can talk, but that's not a permanent form because we can interpret what is said to us in many different ways verbally because there is no permanent, recognizable form. When you release your book, it takes a permanent form, permanent, tangible form. And that's one thing that scares us. But this is one thing we're all meant to leave behind. The biggest byproduct of this retreat that you can expect is peace. Peace. I know you've heard you say this before probably, but happiness is way overrated. 3/4 of the people that go to happy hour at night don't wake up so happy the next morning. Happiness is a temporary situation. Peace is a permanent form of communion, accepted communion with the divine. That's what peace is. So the third question that I asked each one of my authors after they believe they concluded the writing of their books at a retreat, third question is always the same. I just look at them deeply in the eyes and say, how do you feel? How do you feel right now? I get two responses, one of two responses. First response I get, most common one is, I feel good because I did what I came here to do. And they're not talking about the retreat. They're talking about something much bigger. I did what I came here to do. That's the most common response I get. Second most common response I get is, I feel at peace. Now, the average length of time that an individual has wanted to write a book before he or she shows up at my retreats is 23 years. 23 years. So you would think, finally finished the freaking book, they're going to be excited, jumping around, singing, dancing, setting off fireworks. No one does. Because they've achieved peace. Peace is its own form of happiness. It's a permanent form of resolution, happiness, connection, communion with the divine. Now, there's several things that could transpire in your life as a result of this retreat. You could begin a new career. Maybe like me, you realize that writing was not just a calling, it was a profession. And if you're in that circumstance, we can help you get published. We can help you fast forward to becoming a best-selling author and getting your book out within months. Second form of result that you may receive is spiritual enlightenment. Now, enlightenment doesn't mean reaching ultimate enlightenment. Enlightenment comes in phases. Because you'll be sitting in direct communion with God, Spirit, whatever you want to call he, she, or it, for 3.5 days, this retreat, you will transpire. Your life will transition will transition through healing, which leads to enlightenment. Enlightenment is nothing more than the healing of old wounds, the releasing of old pains, the taking up of their places by a connection with the white light energy of God. You'll receive enlightenment. Or you may just come for a spiritual development. Maybe you just want to see if you can do this. I've always wanted to write a book, and you did it. Now, if you write a book in a weekend, if you write a book in a weekend by tuning into the direct communion that's available to all of us with God, wow, maybe you can do just about anything by using that same connection. All three of those opportunities will be available to you at the retreat. Expect extreme growth through change. Don't resist the change. Well, when you feel the resistance of the change, don't resist the resistance by pushing it away or over embellishing it. Just allow yourself to feel it. Again, you're going to feel nervous. You're going to feel a little angry. You're going to feel some doubt. You'll feel hot and cold. You'll feel exhilarated and fatigued. These are all natural patterns of transition, of release and transition. Don't overreact to any of them. They're natural. You're going to doubt. You're going to wonder. You're going to worry. You're going to get a little angry. You're going to resist. It's normal. It's normal. You know, my wife and I just did, it's September, we're a little bit late, but we were doing a spring cleaning of her house. And we've combined households, so we had a lot of spring cleaning to do. So we had to go through a lot of stuff, you know. A lot of stuff, especially on my end, not so much on her end. A lot of stuff on my end. I mean, I held on for 2 or 3 decades, just stuff that at one time or another were very important to me, or were just things I couldn't let go of, but had been important to me for a long period of time. And they were taking up room in our house or my space. It could be better facilitated by something else. So it took a little while for me to let go of these things. Sometimes it took decades to let go of them. But now I had a greater impetus to let go of them because I wanted to create our space, not just my space. And that was important to me. That's so important to me. And you're doing the exact same thing. You're creating your space, or our space, your space with God. So you got to look at a lot of things. I dusted off a lot of old boxes, opened up a lot of old crates, you know, looked at, oh my God, yeah, I remember this from when I was 18 years old. Do I really need it? No, but maybe somebody else needs it, or maybe it just needs to find another place. And there's an emotional reaction to letting go. And it can vary from depression to anger to doubt to resistance to hot and cold temperatures to exhilaration, fatigue. But expect that, and then you won't be caught off guard by being surprised by an emotional reaction that you had not anticipated. Now, one thing I hear from a lot of people at these retreats, and I have to bite my tongue to keep from laughing when I hear this, I've done a lot of work on myself. Well, we all have done a lot of work on ourselves, okay? I've done a lot of work on myself, okay, what the author is normally saying is, I'm not going to go through this crap because I've done all this stuff already. Until you've written a book, you haven't done all this crap already. Everything you've done is prepared you to get to the time where the change that writing a book brings. And writing a book, again, using this method, is based upon reaching a direct communion with the Almighty, or whatever you believe is out there, and moving that energy of that Almighty through you, through the writing of your book. So I know you've all done a lot of work on yourself. I know I've done a lot of work on myself. And I've done a lot of work at these retreats. But I got to tell you something. I'm never egotistical enough, so egotistical to believe that I can't still learn and grow. Every retreat, I learn and grow. I learn and grow. I can tell you, we're 2 weeks off of the retreat now. I can tell you sometime between now and the next 2 weeks for the retreat, I will have a day where all my resistance that I'm talking to you about will surface. I'll just kind of lay there on the couch all day. Sometimes I spike a fever. Sometimes I get a sore throat. Whatever. It all manifests physically. My emotions are manifest physically because I'm a very physical human being. And know what I do? I take that day off and I just allow myself to feel whatever I'm going to feel so I can be prepared for you. Now, when I get to the retreats, I still go through stuff. You know, you're not the only one who gets benefits from these retreats. I go through that stuff too. I go through what you're going through because I move it out. It moves from you into me, and I take it out of the curb and lay it out there and take it away. And your stuff is my stuff too. So I feel it too. So don't ever think that you've done so much work on yourself that there's no more work to do. I really think if there's no more work to do, there's no reason for us to be on this planet when we leave. We're still here because we got work to do. And the key, though, is it comes back to an old saying that, and please write this down. This is really important. This is a major key to open a major door for me in my life. I had this friend by the name of Gordon Stonehouse, who was this very stoic, spiritual oracle type of guy. And he was older than I was, and I was a young man. I used to go to Gordon every once in a while to talk. And one time I went to him, and I was having problems with a relationship or something in my life, and I was all emotional and blaming it on this person, that person, and oh, my life sucks and everything. I was looking at everybody but me. And so he just sat there very stoically and listened to everything I had to say. And I said, "What do you think I should do?" And he leaned forward. He said, "Tom, you're obviously in a lot of pain." I said, "Oh God, yes, Gordon, I am. Well, you know how bad things are, and this person did this to me, and you know." And he said, "Tom, you're in a lot of pain. You're in a lot of pain because you're resisting the growth that comes with life. Because Tom, pain is nothing more than resistance to growth. Resistance to growth." Son of a gun, he was right. Anytime I start to get selfish or feel like a victim, Gordon appears back in my mind. He's passed over 20 years ago. He appears in my mind and saying to me, pain is nothing more than resistance to growth. So the doubts, the worries, the anger you're going to feel at the retreat is your form of resisting self-created pain to resist the growth that the retreat brings. So what do? You stop resisting. Go into it. For me, I feel my pain, my energy gets stuck. My emotions get stuck in my solar plexus area. Some of us may get it stuck in our throat, our knees, our legs, other areas. I get stuck in my solar plexus. So I stop, because what Gordon told me so long ago, I put into play. I stop when I start to feel pain, and there's several derivatives of pain. Again, doubt, nervousness, worry, anger. When I start to feel that pain, I stop. I stop whatever I'm doing because I'm no good to anybody else, including myself at that time. I stop. I move my consciousness into my solar plexus area. I feel the pain that I've created. I release the pain that I've created. And I go back to growing again. That's what I suggest to you. Take the time. I mean, you know, when we're in pain, we're resisting growth. We're resisting our own growth. And we're really no good for anybody, including ourselves at that moment. And no one can fix us but us. So we can run to our spouse, we can run to a friend, we can run to a mentor. And if they're good friends, spouses, or mentors, they're going to turn on us and say, you know, I feel for you. I really do. I can see you're in pain, but I don't know what I can do to help you, but I know what you can do to help yourself. So at the retreat, the initial byproduct of growth that you will feel will be any one of the derivatives of pain that I expressed. What do? When they show up? You keep writing. You keep moving that divine energy through you while breathing yourself into relaxation and allowing whatever it is to go as you do, as your own spring cleaning, your emotional spring cleaning is done. This retreat will be whatever you want it to be and a lot more. I can say that very confidently because I was the first one to go through this that I know as an author. I can say this very confidently because I do 8 to 10 of these retreats a year, and this is all I see. All I see is the personal growth. So there's many byproducts you can get out of this retreat. Become a best-selling author, start a career as an author, spiritual enlightenment. More than anything else, I feel this is an opportunity for you to step into your life plan and live it. You know, that's the only way we can. I think peace is nothing more than a derivative. Peace is nothing more than a derivative of a consciously accepted spiritual connection, whatever form you want it to take. You know, and you can't give anybody else anything that you don't already have. I can't give you a dollar bill if I don't have a dollar bill in my pocket. You want to positively benefit the world. You can do that through your book. You do it through your words, your message, your voice. You can do that as well through your presence. This is all about self-love too. This retreat's all about self-love. Except, you see, one of the things that so many authors find paralyzing about this retreat is the books that they end up writing are written from a perspective that's much greater than the perspective they see themselves as. Test your self-love. Got to be a good recipient. The books were written on the other side of life when we were more divinely inspired, more divinely directed, more divine, less human. And we saw things from a very different perspective when we were on that other side of life. We saw ourselves from a much different perspective too. Now through the writing of our books, we're being asked to embrace and accept, receive that perspective. So we're being asked to receive God's viewpoint, vision of ourselves as opposed to our own. That's where the self-love comes in. But you know something? You can't really love anybody fully until you love yourself first. And there's always more room for more love. Always more. This book is going to give you the opportunity to love yourself more, love your life more, love your people, love the people in your life more, and love life as in general more by the presence you have to divide, you have to present. So I just wanted to let you know what you got into with this retreat. It's not too late to back out. But had I known what I was telling you, what I've been telling you for the last hour, had I known this going into the writing of my first book, it would have been a lot easier for me to accept what had just transpired in my life and make better use of it, as opposed to spending 4 or 5 years trying to understand it. That's why I want to talk to you tonight about what will transition for you, what will happen for you, so you can leave the retreat and immediately embrace the gifts that you've received. I just want to say thank you for being here tonight. I'm really glad that you've attended, God's led you to my retreat, and glad that you're consciously giving yourself into going through this process with me. I want you to know that myself and my staff take this as a part of our divine rite of passage too, to walk you through this passage as well. We're all devoted to your success in that regard. And you can, believe me, at the retreat, if you have any problem, if you have any concern, any doubts, don't embody it yourself. If you can't get over it, you need help, come to one of us. That's what we're there for. We've been, me personally, I've been down this path, and this is not an exaggeration, thousands of times. Every path is different, but always leads to the same place. And Sabrina will be there. She's a godsend. She can talk to her, but we're there for you. And we're honored by the fact that you'll be joining us for this week at our weekend retreat. And thank you for tonight. Okay, Sabrina?